How do you know you're about to hire a real boundary survey for your real estate transaction and not an imitation, right? Not a construction surveyor or a 3D surveyor, these other kinds of surveyors that we have running around. You want to make sure that you get a good boundary surveyor, a real boundary surveyor for your project. So how do you do that? I talked about 5 ways in another video. In this video, I'm going to give you the second 5 ways. You know that, so 10 ways total. Here's number 6. A real boundary surveyor will help you solve problems. Right? So these other kinds of surveyors, if they get in, they start the work on the boundary survey and they find a problem, an encroachment, or a deed that doesn't close, or 2 old surveys that don't match. A lot of times they just throw up their hands and walk away. Okay? A good boundary surveyor, she's not going to do that to you. She is going to take the time to actually sit down and work with you on potential solutions to the problem. There are very few boundary or land title problems that a good surveyor can't help you fix, especially if he's working with a land attorney or a good title officer. So usually a surveyor can fix problems. That's number 6. Number 7, a real boundary surveyor will take the time to explain to you the results of his survey. So a good boundary surveyor, when she's done with the survey, she's going to sit down and explain the map to you. She's going to show you the map she prepared. She might actually walk you around the property to show you the different property corners she found and the evidence that she evaluated, right? She might explain any potential encroachments that she finds or other issues. Number 8, the 8th way you can tell you've got a real boundary surveyor is they're prepared to defend their work in court. A lot of other kinds of surveyors get super scared about going to court. I know a lot of surveyors that do not take expert witness work. They don't want to even defend their own survey in court. That's a bad thing. So on every boundary survey we do, we do good record keeping. We document the decisions and the judgment calls we've made, and I'm always ready to go to court and defend one of our surveys if the need arises. That's an important thing that a boundary surveyor does. We talked before in the other video, the first video of this 2-part set, that a good boundary surveyor knows the law. That includes knowing how to defend her survey in court. She's going to know how to do that if she's a good boundary surveyor, a real boundary surveyor. Okay, the 9th way you can tell you got a real boundary surveyor is a real boundary surveyor understands how land title insurance works. If most real estate transactions, the boundary surveyor and the land title insurance kind of go hand in hand. Those 2 things work really close together, and one relates to the other. And so if you're a good boundary surveyor, you're going to know how title insurance works. You're going to know how to talk to a title officer. You're going to know how to work with a good title officer to solve problems. Okay, and finally, the last way, number 10, the last way you've got a real boundary surveyor is a real boundary surveyor understands how to evaluate unwritten rights. So that means they can go out to a piece of property and they can look at evidence of use by third parties, other parties, neighbors, or they can evaluate the use of other land by the current owners of the subject parcel, and they can give you an idea if you have a potential issue with unwritten rights. That's a really important part of what boundary surveyors do. I know a lot of surveyors say, that's not my job, I just stake the deed, I just put down what's on paper. That's a cop-out, it's an excuse. If you've got a surveyor telling you that means you didn't hire a real boundary surveyor. You probably got one of those other kinds of surveyors we talked about. That's something construction surveyors say. Don't put up with that from your land surveyor. A good boundary surveyor is going to understand and know how to evaluate unwritten rights. They'll be able to work with an attorney or a title officer to help clean up issues related to unwritten rights. So there you go. There's 10 ways that you've got a real boundary surveyor. That's important. Again, just to sum up, if you're in a real estate transaction, you don't want to hire one of those other kinds of surveyors to do your boundary survey. You want to make sure that you get a real boundary surveyor. It takes a lot of time and effort to be a good boundary surveyor, right? You got to know the law, you got to know title insurance, you got to know all those different things. If you get an imitation, if you get a counterfeit, you don't get the real thing, it's going to potentially cause problems in your real estate transaction. So don't do that.